A lot of people told me they couldn't stand the idea of living in a funeral home. And they were just these first two. And where the little chapel is now, that was the casket display room. No, some woman up in one of the upstate counties, her husband put her name on it as being a funeral director, and I don't think she'd ever been in that funeral home. But I was active from the beginning. My daughter was born in, I'd have to go back and look it up to see. She was the older child, and 4 years later, Robert Thompson Mayer Jr. was born. And yes, we didn't live upstairs to begin with. We evidently had a little house somewhere. But when we were expecting the son of my husband, who was I would say a skilled carpenter, helped add on a room at the back, because it never was a good idea for a boy and a girl to be in the same room. He did in this in that, and well, actually, this whole part he did, and some of it may have not been his work, but I think it was. Upstairs was a telephone office, and we just had the one vehicle which we were paying for. If we got a call, somebody needed the ambulance or someone had died, I would ring the telephone office. Now, it was not motorized as it is now. Whoever was on duty that day I'd say, Mrs. Bell, what you want? And I said, I need my husband. They said, just wait a minute. We'll go to the window and look down the street. And he's the tallest thing in town, so we'll find him. And they always did. How we didn't have a wreck every minute of the day, because honestly, it didn't look any wilder than this. It was wide enough for two, but the cars was smaller back then. It was almost terrifying, and I drove to Georgetown for years over the bridge, because the stores in Georgetown just had work clothes mostly. And I'd go to Charleston to get shoes for the children, and we didn't have low-cut ones like this. They were about that high. And a different one for Sunday, white and buttoned up. Fogel did put in it was a department store. They had fine linen and food, packaged food, and just about anything. One of my friends at Morningside clerked there, and it helped me find anything I wanted to find. Bob and Peggy have the linen napkins with which a dear friend put the M on, and those very napkins are still being used today. People did a lot of buying, a lot of charging, and couldn't pay for it. So things like that brought on the Depression, because the Depression was about 1930, wasn't it? There was a furniture store, and so many of these businesses, the things that were working then were Jewish families. There was a Snyder store. One thing I remember clearly, my husband met Bernard Baruch on the street, and my Rob was absolutely bowled over. Mr. Kaminsky said, "Oh, Bob, it's so nice to see you again." The Baruch families were founding fathers all over the state of South Carolina. And of course, there's a building to this day that bears the Kaminsky name. They lived in Camden in the early days. he lived on a plantation. I've forgotten the name of it, and went north to New York because he had a lot of business interests there. Both families lived over the funeral home by then, and one had one side and one the other side. My husband had been planning a service down in McClellanville, and he called the house and said, "Get to the corner." So Tommy's mother, Liz, had Tommy, and I think I had Bob and Jody. And here they came around the corner, and Mr. Baruch was going to meet.
Roosevelt, the president?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so here we were. We looked. I don't know. We were just dancing like this to get there. And I said, we are crazy. He's just a man. When he turned the corner on from a high market to go over the bridge, which I think was a little wider by that time. And we saw him. And those fireside chats he gave, we almost thought it was the good Lord speaking. Well, it was comforting. It was indeed. Oh, yeah. Grover Cleveland was one. And they'd go to the vineyard and go to take these visitors to the vineyard and go to society meetings, because that was a very early organization in the Georgetown community. It was a school first, and then they named the building they built the Indigo Society Hall. It's there to this day. And they have weddings there and wedding receptions. I don't know when the I've forgotten when the hospital was established, but usually they would have to take somebody to Charleston. I do know that. The first part of the Georgetown Hospital was established in 1950. And my church circle had worked hard at all kind of benefits to be able to make a contribution. And we were always, I'm still, when I remember, quite proud that we did. I think it was $5,000, and then it would build a room for the hospital. It'd probably be $500,000 now. I will say this, I've loved every minute of my life in Georgetown. My mother lived the last winter of her life with me upstairs over the funeral home. And we made her as comfortable. The hospital made her as comfortable as possible, but she died at my house, and we took her back to Saluda, South Carolina for her interment. I was born at home. I was born in 1912. I was honored that I could take care of my mother, and my older brother had been working in Florence, and he came to live with me. And my brother in Mississippi would come and get Joe Oscar in the summer so I could have a little time to rest. If you had a beach house and we with Thomas, my husband, and Tommy's father, Jacob Brooks Mayer, we had a house at the beach for many years.
On Paulie's?
Yeah, until everybody was going off to school, and then we sold it. Lee's my sister-in-law, and I, when it was a real a day when the tide was out, Jody was asleep in the downstairs bedroom, and we was, Lise and I, walk in the water and scoop up the big blue crabs, which you hardly find anymore. My phone has the time of day and the day of the month. And I was thinking about this yesterday, which was the 14th, and it automatically registered the 15th today. I hope my taxes have been paid. The only church down in the country where we lived out from Saluda was a Baptist church, and the Baptist minister, who was a very distinguished gentleman, came to see me, and I hadn't thought a thing about this. I said, I want to join my husband's church. And he said, you're making the right decision because you already have roots in the Methodist Church. your dad, Mayor, is a stud, and your mama, Mayor, is a Sunday school teacher. And when I told my mother that, I thought she would just die. She said, Isabel, I know that, I don't even remember his name. I know he didn't say that. I said, indeed. So anyhow, somebody was bringing communion up when my mother was still there, and she had never seen the little traveling, and she just loved every minute of it. Joe Oscar and she both. And when the minister went down the steps, the same one we go from upstairs now, she leaned out where Mr. Curry could hear her, and she said, I really do believe a few Methodists are going to heaven. And I was being double, I was on the stairs, and I think it was Peyton Jean Curry. And she said, I really do believe a few Methodists are going to heaven. And Mr. Curry said, well, I hope I'm one of them. And she said, you just might be. And I've never been sorry. We have enough that we do liturgically, and yet now it's informal at times. When I was first a member, we wouldn't have clapped in church, but we do for things the children have done or something that's being done for us.